Hey guys, my name's Mike. I run the company Feel Good Grapes. We have been asked by Sanlam to run the tasting for you guys. This coming up on this Friday. Now, they've told me that a couple of you guys couldn't make it for various different reasons, or that you might struggle to make it if there's a problem with Wi-Fi and things like that. So what I thought I'd do is I'd do a little video for you guys. I will stop calling you guys in a bit. I have noticed I've said that a lot. Apologies in advance because I'll probably do it again. Yeah, I just wanted to do a little video with the three wines to explain a little bit about, very little bit about the company, a little bit about the wines, a very small sort of tasting note, and then what I'd say is, I'd encourage you guys, if you've got anything at all that you want to ask, then just get in touch with me, Ellie, or Andrew at Sanlam. Can give you our details, and if you've got questions, anything like, but anything really, it could be anything involved in wine at all, but specifically about these wines or the company or what have you, then feel free to just shoot us a message anytime. Okay, it'd be our absolute pleasure to answer those questions for you. But without further ado, let's have a look at the wines that you have hopefully got in your box. So the order I'd probably suggest, so we've got the 40 Hall Bacchus. You probably can't see that because the sun is pretty, I'm getting the wrong way today because like the camera's ruining my brain a little bit here. Like the left is right and right is left. So, but anyway, the 40 Hall Bacchus, which I'll put up there. Try and turn it around. That's the first one out. If you were going to try the three together, I'd start with that one. We then go to the Nobody's Perfect, which is the Bordeaux Sauvignon Blanc. And then we're obviously going to finish with the beautiful Malbec from Mendoza in Argentina. So what I've done is I've just jotted down a couple of notes there. So if I keep looking down there, don't panic at all. I'm not like clock watching or anything. I just want to make sure that I've got enough information for you guys to go and really enjoy your tasting through these wines. And when we start with each of these wines, it's probably a good thing to start just very quickly with Feel Good Grapes. What myself and Toby Flood started the company, started this year actually. We've been looking at starting something for a while, but it took till probably about sort of January, February this year to start it up. I'm a wine writer by trade, or I have been in the past. Still continue to do that for a few on-trade and off-trade magazines. And the wines that I was basically getting more and more interested in were people who are really pushing the boundary when it came to eco-aware. Is that fair to say? I'm not sure I can say that as a term, but more sort of eco-aware. I've said it again, so sorry, we'll go with it. Yeah, just they want to push the boundary of what you can do, moving as far away from, I guess, what we call old school conventional farming. There's one thing, the use of agrochemicals, and obviously that's sort of being phased out slowly in most wineries, if I'm honest. Not all, but most. But there's other things that we can be doing right now as we start to really understand our impact on the world. Agriculture is obviously right up there in terms of working out what their impact in the world is as well. And wine is very much a part of agriculture. Wineries or wine growers, grape growers, they're all farmers. They produce an agricultural product, and they have to be, and effectively wine is at the sort of, it's like the canary in the cage when it comes to climate change, because, half a degree average temperature higher, and all of a sudden you can't plant that grape in that area anymore. And so you have to be very aware of what's going on around you if you work in the wine trade. You might not do anything about it, but you absolutely know it's happening. And I think what we wanted to do was just say that from a retailer point of view, what we can do is promote the wineries we want to promote, and we can also offset our own emissions, offset our own, what we do day to day, and really simple things. We plant a bottle for every, we plant a bottle, they're not going to grow, plant a tree for every bottle we sell. And then we kind of just looked at the minute we're buying some carbon credits to offset any of our larger deliveries. There are better ways of doing that, which we're looking into. And so it is an evolving process, but I think we it's everything down to the fact that all the packaging is fully recyclable or biodegradable, all the way down to like the documents in closed wallets and stuff. We're lucky. We're at a stage where we can do that. That there is, that the packaging's available to do that. The offsetting schemes are out there for people to do that. And we just thought, if we were going to start a company, it was important to us to put that into action. So, having said all that, I'm going to move on to the wines now. I'm sorry to bore you with all that, but it kind of goes into saying why we picked these wines to be in your box, because we're going to start with a 40 Hall Bacchus. Again, I'm going to hold it up, but obviously half of it you can't see because of the sun. Shouldn't really be complaining about the sun, should we? But this Bacchus is actually from the only commercial vineyard in Greater London. So you get a few sort of what we call urban wineries who buy in grapes from outside, and they have a winery in London or Manchester or Bristol, and they make grapes into wine in a city and call it an urban winery. Oh, it's great, we produce wine in the city. Well, you do and you don't, right? What 40 Hall do is they've got a vineyard in Enfield, which is in the parameters center of London, so this is the only London wine out there. Now, that in itself, to me, given I used to live in London, that's not a selling point really, because I live there. I know what London's like, and we've all lived in cities until it's not where you really want your produce to be coming from necessarily all the time. But the actual area they are in Enfield, it's the site of an agricultural college. They've got a fantastic plot of land there to plant their grapes. This one is made, but it's a still white wine made from a grape called Bacchus. Now, the English and Welsh wine scene, mainly English, but there is over the other side of the border as well. Mostly it's about sparkling wines. Mostly it's about the sort, because it's a little bit cooler climate here than it is elsewhere in the world. And we've got a great climate for growing grapes for sparkling wines. Sparkling wines like to be, I wouldn't say underripe, but not too ripe. They want to keep their acidity. Whereas still wines, like table wines, like reds and whites and things like that, if it's too underripe, if it's not ripe enough, it's just not going to taste very good. So England has always had a slight issue with making good table wines other than the sparkling wines because of the climate. Now, what we did is it's like I make it, you know what I mean? But what we have done is bring in grapes that were developed across quite a number of years over in Germany, actually, because Germany obviously had a very, very cool climate. And so they made this grape called Bacchus. They basically made it in a lab, it was kind of, I say in a lab, but it was like anybody, if anybody's into horticulture, it's just crossings, it's just crossing one species with another to get a different species. And that's what they did with Bacchus. And the whole idea with this is it's a lot more resistant to cold, to frost, to damper conditions. And it ripens very nicely in shorter growing seasons, which obviously in Britain we have shorter growing seasons than, well, let's say the south of France. Of course we do. We all know that. But one of the weird things about Bacchus was that when they did it in Germany, they didn't actually the acidity, which is, it sounds like you're sucking on a lemon. I'm not talking about that kind of acidity. Acidity is effectively what makes it refreshing, to have with like a, your afternoon sort of like salad or whatever, or as aperitif wine. It makes your mouth water. It makes you want another sip. It's that refreshingness. And in Germany, it just didn't get that at all. Like the acidity just wasn't there. And it was fat and horrible in the mouth, and it just wasn't working. And then all of a sudden, some bright spark decided to plant it in England, and there was this amazing acidity. And all of a sudden, you had this wine, which is now, or grape, which is effectively becoming the English Sauvignon Blanc to a certain extent. And the better winemakers are making fabulous Bacchus these days. And I genuinely believe this is one of them. We've got, in terms of a tasting note, if you get your smell, I haven't opened the wines because it's quite early in the morning I'm doing this, so apologies. You'll just have to pretend that I've got a glass there, okay? But basically, what you've got is you'll get very sort of cool climate smell. So obviously, again, it's England, so it's going to be cool climate, but you tend to get very crisp green apple. You get the lemon, you get the gooseberry as well, quite a lot. I get quite a big gooseberry hit on this one. And a little bit of hedgerow, sort of summer hedgerow kind of feeling to it as well. But the overriding thing is one of freshness and just, it makes you want to take a sip. It's something that you want to have on a nice sunny summer's day like today. And then when you drink it, again, it's kind of, there's a little coating feeling to it, a little bit of minerality, so you can feel it on your tongue, like a little coatingness. But honestly, if there's any English scholars watching this, I do apologize, I really do. But just go with it. So it's that acidity, though, that you'll find it is just very, very refreshing, really easy to drink, very, very... the flavors as well last quite a long time in the mouth as well, which is, I think, is my biggest indicator of whether a wine is well made or not. We call that the finish of a wine. If it lasts a long time, the nice flavors last a long time after you've had a sip. And I think this one does that as well. Very, very well. One last thing about Forty Hall, which is very, very important. This is one of the, as I said, we've talked about the fact it's a great wine. It's got a nice story in terms of where it's from and the grape that it's grown from. But the reason that myself and Toby were so keen to have this on the list is that Forty Hall Vineyard is actually set up as a social enterprise. And it's about giving, it's a community project in Enfield, and it's about giving people access to ecotherapy. So people who are struggling with their confidence, struggling with their mental health, could be coming back from all kinds of physical or mental ailments, as a recovery, and to build confidence and to build the strength back up, again, mental or physical strength. And so it's basically run by volunteers. It's a not-for-profit organization. And, myself, I've been touched with mental health issues in the past. And it's something that there was no access to that kind of stuff when I was having a bit of a tough time. And I'm just so pleased and proud of people that they see the need for this, and people have gone out there and done it. And the least that I think Toby and I could do was to promote their wines and to sell it and to get some money into their coffers. So I hope you love the wine anyway as a wine, but also I think it's a fabulous story and a fabulous vineyard, and we're very, very pleased and proud to stock it. Talking of pleased and proud, we're going to move on to wine number 2. I didn't need to do that. You can hear me fine. I hope the microphone's working. This is the Montfaucon Estate. Well, I don't know why I'm holding it up. You really can't see that, can you? There you go. That's better. The Montfaucon Estate, Nobody's Perfect Sauvignon Blanc 2018. Now, this is obviously well, I say obviously, but you can read the label. It is a Sauvignon Blanc from Bordeaux. It's a single varietal, which basically means that there's only one grape in it. In Bordeaux, in both the reds and the whites, that's very, very rare. The reason behind that is because in the past, it was basically an insurance hedge for wine growers or grape growers. Because, say, for example, if the weather wasn't quite right that year, and say for red wines, your Merlot didn't grow well, chances are your Cabernet Sauvignon did well, so we can, still make a nice wine, and then vice versa other years. In white wines in Bordeaux, the two sort of standouts, there's quite a lot. There's a bit of Muscadel being grown, but the two main ones are Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon. And they tend to go into most Bordeaux blends. So the Bordeaux Blancs, which is kind of the catch-all term for Bordeaux white wines, tends to be a blend of the two. This is made by what can only be well, let's talk about the wine first before I talk about the winemaker, actually. So the wine itself is 100% Sauvignon Blanc, as I said before. It's made, the grapes are grown in a biodynamic way. For those who do or don't know about biodynamics, I'm just going to very, very quickly say, because there's quite a lot to explain, but I'll just in 2 lines. Basically, it's like an organic plus kind of thing. It's where organics also meets the lunar cycle, a little bit of astrology. This is where people start turning off. I am I come from a maths background. I studied maths at university and I did finance, and I worked, doing all that kind of stuff. I'm in with biodynamics. I mean, look, science can't explain everything. Agriculture's been going for thousands of years using the lunar cycle, and for us to just say, well, that was all rubbish because we think we know better is, I think it's, you should never be so certain about certain things. And one of the things I always find with biodynamic wines, which is crazy, two things actually. One is that if you stand in a biodynamic vineyard, you don't need to be told it's a biodynamic vineyard. The biodiversity that's surrounding you, the strength of the plants is almost visible in front of you. The whole point about biodynamics is that you're basically making sure that the whole ecosphere creates this huge sort of immune system for all the plants within there. So effectively, they can get certain diseases or certain infections, and the plant will recover itself. You don't have to spray all the time. You don't have to do this, that, the other. It will recover. You have very natural remedies to. It's very sort of holistic, really. And as much as people scoff about that, there are certain things where you just can't replicate it, and you also can't explain it. And I think if you can't explain it, or science can't explain it, it doesn't make it untrue. So, and I'm yet to try a biodynamic wine that I haven't thought, wow, that was a lot better than I expected, or a lot bigger and more flavorful than I would ever expect. And this is one of those. So the Sauvignon Blanc she makes, again, Bordeaux, quite a cool area. But this one, much more sort of almost South African in its fruit. You get, when you talk about cool climate, you think of like green fruits like apple and pear. You think of sort of like moderate climates. You think of more sort of stone fruit like apricot and peaches. And then when you get to really warm climates, say, I don't know, sort of, California or to Australia or something, you're getting more towards tropical fruits like sort of pineapples and mangoes and things like that. I mean, this is from Bordeaux. This shouldn't taste like this, but this has got those stone fruits and even tropical fruits. There is that little bit of sort of mango in there right at the end, I find. And it's an incredibly smooth, well-judged wine. There's not a hint of oak. There's not a hint of oak on any of these three wines, but there's not a hint of oak. It's just all about the fruit. And again, if we go back to the idea of the finish, I mean, you can, loads and loads of different flavors to get you smelling, to get your nose into, all those stone fruits, all those kind of like sort of pink grapefruit kind of citrus stuff. But it's the finish again. It's like, just take a swig and then just leave your mouth for a little bit, leave it for 30 seconds, a minute. You'll still taste that wine, the nice flavors. I mean, and I think it's just the again, the hallmark of a great wine as far as I'm concerned. The winemaker, I have to tell you very quick about the winemaker. So she is an amazing English woman called Dawn Jones Cooper. Now, Dawn was, and still is, but was a hairdresser for 25 years. And her and her husband used to live on a houseboat in London. And it was actually what they'd restored one of the old Dunkirk flotilla and lived on it. And they got to a stage where it's like they were getting so fed up with the mooring rates in London and things. So they started having a look around for places they could moor their boat, and maybe just, we'll stick the boat over there and then we'll go out for have a holiday and things like that. And they saw this place in Bordeaux called an area called Entre-deux-Mers in Bordeaux, which basically means between two seas. And one of the seas they're actually two salty rivers. That's why they call them seas. But one of them is called the Dordogne. And they saw this amazing plot of land. It had this rundown old chateau on it. And they went, that's a good place to moor the boat. And then they thought, well, if we're going to do that, we might as well buy the plot of land. And if we're going to do that, then should we become winemakers? So Dawn decided at the age of, I think she was in her early 40s, she took herself to Plumpton College, which is basically where everybody in Britain learns to make wine. And she spent 3 or 4 years there getting a degree in winemaking. She spent a lot of time working with biodynamic vineyards, hence the reason she got really into it herself. And now, in her own words, she is now an English woman making white wines in a French man's red wine world. So she has been a little bit up against it in the first few years in terms of people around her kind of scoffing at what she's attempting to do. But she has won her first vintage. She won awards in the Decanter year annual awards. She won a silver medal for her wines there. And then this year for her sparkling wine, she's actually been voted in the Bordeaux Hot 50 of wines that are available in the UK. We also sell that one at Feel Good Grapes, but what I wanted to show was the Sauvignon Blanc because it's so different. You get a lot of people who don't like Sauvignon Blanc because they remember this sort of Kiwi Sauvignon Blancs. I love Kiwi Sauvignon Blancs as well, but some people really don't, and I get it because it's a very distinct style. But this is, if you don't like Kiwi Sauvignon Blanc, try this. You'll love it. You know, and I'm not suggesting it goes the other way around, but I'm just saying this is not a typical Sauvignon Blanc from Bordeaux or from New Zealand or kind of anywhere else, really. It's such a unique wine. She's done a fantastic job. She's an amazing lady. And I really hope you enjoy that one because she's very cool. And if you do want to speak to her, by the way, because she's going to be on the Zoom call on Friday, but if you want to speak to her at any point, she loves having a natter about what she's up to. So be in touch, all right? And last but not least, I'm so sorry this has taken so long. I really hope you haven't switched off and started watching Cardinal or something like that on the telly instead. But the beautiful Malbec from 2018 from Mendoza in Argentina. Now, Mal means made as Alfredo likes. Now, Alfredo, I've got actually the stuff down here, actually. Basically, there's a guy called Alfredo Melo, and he's originally from Mendoza, but he went to go and train in Napa Valley in California. And then when he came back to Mendoza, he had a really sort of set idea of what he wanted to do. We're looking at people may or may not have heard about this bloke called Robert Parker, and he was, and to an extent still is, but I think he's pretty much retired now. He was like the biggest wine critic globally, the biggest wine critic for about 20, 30 years. You know, he did an incredible job, and he the wine world has got a lot to thank him for. The slight issue being is towards the end, obviously, pretty much every winemaker in the world is trying to make wines that Robert Parker will like. So they know that Robert Parker likes big, fat red wines, really heavily oaked. I mean, well judged, don't get me wrong, but like not like massive, massive oak, but definitely use a barrel, stick some sweet spice in there, make sure it's big, fat kind of wine and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's going to get you drunk off like just smelling it. And if you didn't do that, he wasn't going to give you a good score. And if you didn't get a good Parker score, you probably weren't going to sell your wines. In the last sort of 5 or 10 years, people have slowly started to have the confidence to really make the wines that they wanted to make. Hence the reason made as Alfredo likes. So no oak at all. And basically just showing off what Malbec can do as a grape variety. Now, Malbec is originally from Bordeaux. It moved over to It moved over to Argentina in about the early 19th century. Basically, it's just a lot of immigration from that kind of area towards Argentina. That proper spiked at the end of the 19th century when in Europe we had this little mite called phylloxera that basically chewed its way through most of the vineyards in Europe. So you had a load of winemakers who all of a sudden didn't have any vineyards. And they thought, sorry, I might as well just up sticks and go and start somewhere else. So a lot of people, French and Italians, ended up going to Argentina. And so hence they took the grape varieties with them. And so, and funnily enough, they never actually really replanted Malbec in Bordeaux. So people don't associate Malbec with Bordeaux. Although, again, if we go back due to climate change, people are now replanting Malbec in Bordeaux because Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon aren't going to keep working, and that's just how it is. But Malbec, the Argentinians have done a brilliant job in making it a well-known grape variety. But I think this is probably one of my favorite expressions of Malbec I've ever tasted. I've tasted quite a few. I've tasted some incredible oaked Malbecs, and they're phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But I love fruit and I love floral smells as well, and Malbec gives you both in absolute spades. Now in this one you're going to get sort of it's almost like cassis, blackcurrant, blackberry, fruits of the forest kind of but really concentrated smells there. But also, and this is a telltale sign for Malbec, is there's like a violet petal lift to it right in there, and it kind of just it stops it being too heavy. Basically, I mean, this is 14.5% alcohol. Okay, so just to know, I know there's a trend these days for alcohol to get a little bit lighter. So the Bacchus actually is only 11.5%. Dawn's Nobody's Perfect. This is the only one she makes that's over 11%. This one's 13%, but she does that once a year with one of her wines, but the rest of them all tend to be very, very low alcohol. Whereas this one is sort of unashamedly 14.5%. Look, it's sunny out in Mendoza. You know, the grapes get really, really ripe. So don't shy away from that. Just don't have the entire bottle on your own and then drive home, obviously. In fact, don't drink and drive at all, please. Please don't. But yeah, don't operate heavy machinery. Don't, give birth to children or anything like that after a glass. Just don't do it. But that's not to say it's not a really, really enjoyable drink. And especially with, the standard everybody has is their sort of steak in a Malbec, right? But this is the most brilliant sort of, I think, summer barbecue wine going, because it has that sort of lightness to the smell. It has loads and loads of fruit, loads and loads of florality, really super smooth tannin. Now, tannin, if you've got tea drinkers out there, tannin's that sort of, obviously I know with the size of my front teeth, but it's that kind of grippiness, the drying sensation you get around your gums. And you get that in wine as well, in red wines mostly, but you can get it in some whites, but mostly it's just in reds. And a big thing for a red wine producer is to keep them tannins either down or just really smooth. I mean, tannin adds body, but if it's too tacky, then it's just not very pleasant. Whereas this one, and usually what you do is that's what you use an oak barrel for, is to calm the tannins down, give it a bit of time in oak, and it just calms it all down. This one hasn't seen any oak at all, but I'd say it's super smooth. It's got plenty of tannin in there, but it's not aggressive at all. It's just really drinkable, really lush. I think it's a fantastic wine. This, again, like both of these, actually, the 40 Hall and the Beautiful, these are both organic wines. The Nobody's Perfect is certified organic, but using biodynamic principles. That sounded a little bit over the top there, but it's all about basically box ticking. So let's not go too far into that, because that really is a boring conversation. But basically, I just wanted to show that the three wines, it's all about people trying to do things differently out there in the world. People who are trying to sort of, with the Malbec, they just don't want to make another oaked Malbec. They want to say, no, look, we make amazing fruit in this area. It's all about the fruit. It's all about the agriculture. It's all about the grape grower doing the right thing in the vineyard, and the winemaker doing the right thing with the grapes in the cellar. And I really hope you enjoyed all three of them. If you do, as I said, if you do have any questions or queries, anything like that at all, please do give me a shout, me or Toby, or Dawn, in fact, because she's more than happy to field questions as well. But really sorry that you couldn't join us, because this is one of those ones that goes on for about 2 or 3 hours, and these are getting really, really good fun. So hopefully we can catch you all at the next one. But in the meantime, look after yourselves, stay safe, and enjoy the wines. Take care. Bye-bye.